Today I want to give an update on the battling that's happening in my KvK right now. And although I personally don't have any fights, unfortunately, we've got 1175 battling 846 pictured on your screen right now. And also we've got the 1302 war camp battling against my former kingdom. That's 254. So stick around in this video for an update on how things are going and a breakdown of what happened on stream yesterday. Let's get it going. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And it has been a very eventful past 24 hours in our KvK. And although we unfortunately have nobody to fight in 2605, we got this zone for free, the Echo Plains. We got this zone for free, that's Greenwell. There was a lot that went down yesterday, including some crazy drama when the passes opened for Lime Hill, this zone over here. Now, for those of you just catching up to this KvK and who the players in the field are, you may recall that we actually allied with 1302 last KvK. They actually did a huge play to support 254, the kingdom I was in previously, in order to, I think, get out of being in a sort of steamroll situation where they'd get a free win. And they did one of the most impressive territory holds to get into another zone of all time. If you didn't see that, okay, card will be in the end screen. Why do I mention that? Because you've got a team over here that is extremely good at territory, battling into the 254 war camp, and there were some hiccups as the 254 war camp entered into Lime Hill. And I'm not even saying this is 254's fault. I'm not trying to blame anybody for some of these hiccups, okay? But there were some coordination issues, and pretty much everything that went wrong yesterday, or could have gone wrong, went wrong. That included difficulty taking the pass and having the pass in rage, so they had to try again a second time. There were issues with the coalition, where not all the alliances were in the coalition. And then, if you can believe it, there was an officer in 254 who popped alliance skills immediately after Craftsman was used. Now, this is a fine opportunity for a public service announcement that Craftsman is an ability that accelerates your ability to build flags, but if you use any other alliance ability, it overwrites the previous. So here you can see Chisgule uses Craftsman, and then seconds later, Wolfie uses Unbridled Progress and also counteroffensive. So Wolfie must just be trolling, because it's like one thing if you use one ability, but two abilities. Cortex seemed to think that that was a sabotage. I don't know, man. All I know is that that is bad, because the TR entry into the zone was here, over this wall, and it looks like that is now locked up by 1302. However, you can see there's a bunch of inactive flags here, and actually, 254 had a crazy push into this zone. Although this is looking very yellow right now, which is my allies, Blue had pushed all the way up to these PK 26 forts. They had pushed to this sort of wall where the mountains are in Lime Hill. And now, during their downtime, they got pushed back a bunch. So it's looking like our allies are doing really well right now in this zone, which I think people didn't expect. People kind of expected the 254 war camp to run into Lime Hill and to take Lime Hill. But our allies have done a really great job in this zone. They did have a fort drop that failed. We're in the Warriors Unbound KvK, and you can only build forts on holy sites and passes. And they actually built a fort like right over here, and they tried to support it, but they just couldn't get there in time. And the 254 war camp did take out that fort, although overall it is looking like our allies over here in yellow have secured this zone. At least they're on the doorstep for doing that. Unfortunate tragedy of errors, sort of one after the other for the 254 war camp. And it's definitely a bummer for them that it sort of worked out the way that it did. From here, we can look to the other side of the map. And when we look to the other side of the map, it's an interesting situation. This is 1175, that's Mimi, versus 846 up in the top. Now, 846, I will say, is easily one of the top 5 kingdoms in the game right now. They're super large. They had a huge migration in, and they've got the all-star Mocote, who is currently number 2 now for the most deads in a single KvK, if you can believe it, passed only by Yoda, who had the most deads in a KvK, and he's in my kingdom, and he's the strongest player by power in Rise of Kingdoms, which is crazy. But if we look at the individual kills here, if you haven't seen Mocote's account in 846, he's currently 574 million power with 37 billion kill points. Crazy, crazy gameplay from Mocote. And there are a bunch of players on the field, like you may recall Saz, who has the strongest cavalry account in the game, in my opinion. He actually moved over to our allies from 1254 and is now in Mimi. And he's 290 million power, 35 billion kill points. Due to super chill and super crazy, Clubman, who has among the highest kill points in the game, has made his way to Mimi's alliance. So all of this context, right, for the pass opening that happened yesterday. And people were expecting it to be a steamroll in favor of 846. But remember, not only did 846 have a good migration, but so did 1175. Now, if you didn't know, 1175 is the home of Mimi. And Mimi has 2 accounts that are over 1 billion power, or at least they were over 1 billion. One of them is now just under 1 bill, right? Also, Kang has accounts here that is currently 475 million power and 406 million power. Crazy powerful accounts. I mean, it is really wild. Like, at some point, what people do is they're like, all right, well, you know, if 7 marches on the open field was good, you know, I could power up my account more, or I could just have 2 accounts, and then I could have 14 marches in the open field and play on 2 devices at the same time. Wild, man. So what happened? 846 broke into this zone first, and they built forts on every single pass, including this pass over here. Now, this pass is closest to the Mimi side of the map. So Mimi's team rolled straight up and then to the right. And when they went, and I think that flagging is actually really good. I would have gone directly toward these, you know, forts over here that the 846 team had built. But I think actually the way Mimi did this was better, because you kind of want this forward line going toward 846, right? So Mimi's team cut to the right. They ended up burning the forts that 846 built over here. And 846 has been pushing just straight down from the top. And this is definitely interesting, because what I was told is that in this KvK, the fighting ends within 24 hours in each of these zone openings, because you just can't build many forts. But here we are 24 hours later, and there is a lot of fighting still happening. Now, I would say that Mimi's kingdom, 1175, is outmatched against 846. That's not a criticism. That's just looking at the data. I think they've got a fight that I mean, I just don't think they can necessarily win. And again, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm not in the slightest. It's just 846 is huge, super active, super large. And I think what Mimi's kingdom is sort of doing here is kind of testing the waters. And I think the more you can fight like this, the better. I think it's good to take opportunities to brawl like this, leading up to bigger fights that happen later, to sort of test your own punching power, test the enemy's punching power, and honestly, to have a lot of fun, right? Like, this is fun. The only way in which this would be a disaster is if, you know, Mimi's team is taking super negative trades the entire time. Then you're burning resources in a really inefficient way. And I don't know how it's actually going, but it looks really crazy. You can see our allies are in orange. I guess we are. Why is it that we are able to see them in orange? This is a thing I should know. I guess we have some sort of cross-camp allies going. I guess I can see this in here, right? They're not in our coalition diplomacy. There it is. The diplomacy tab is where that's happening. So we have 1175 allied in our Diplo tab. That's why they show up as yellow here. So it makes it a little bit easier to spectate the fireworks as these guys battle it out. And I think from what I can tell, both sides have played the zone really well. I think 846 was aggressive on their opening, and they're the overdog in this zone. I think it was a fine choice to make. Not every time when you go on offensive does it work out, and I think this was aggressive. They went for it. Didn't work. It was a matter of minutes before the fort would have finished, and it would have got really, really spicy. So I think it was a good play. It just didn't work, which is fine. That's how it goes sometimes. And I look forward to seeing how this zone ultimately progresses, although my expectation is that, 846, I assume, will take this zone. If this goes the other way and 1175 takes this zone, this KvK is all but over. So for the sake of R getting some fights, I actually I want 1175 to do well, but I don't want them to end the KvK in this zone, because, then we just, I don't know, that would be, that would have been a huge error in the sort of sizing up of all the teams and figuring out who should be allied with who, right? So if 846 gets this zone, what does that mean? Well, Mimi's team will move into Hyde. That is the logical place that they go. So Mimi's team goes into this zone. They get access to all the bastions, and they can chill in here for a little bit. It won't be too long, however, because then the zone 6s open up, the pass 5s open. So I assume Mimi's team, after inhabiting Hyde, will then move into Norris Ford, which, by the way, it looks like 846 will be able to go in there as well. So Fire Camp and Daybreak can use this pass only, which is very interesting features of these passes. So Mimi will have to fight them again in this next zone, Norris Ford, okay? And in addition, there's a level 5 pass over here. So it'll be 1302 and Mimi versus 846 if 846 decides to take that fight. And I assume they will bring the heat. If they take this zone, they'll try to take this one as well. It's kind of an opportunity to make it very difficult for Team Chisgule to progress further into the KvK. If they're able to lock up, and not exactly lock up, but push into the position that our allies are in, okay? Now, from here, we can look to the other side of the map, okay? And our allies are actually in position to cage 254, which is good for us and super bad for them. So what does that mean? Well, the next fight that 254 can take will be against my kingdom, and we're going to be fresh. So I think that 254 is in some big trouble. If they couldn't beat 1302 fresh, I think they're really going to struggle against us after they've expended some amount of troops and resources and speed ups. Now, in fairness, I think over there they should have a lot of resources from all the people that left, that donated their resources as they were departing from the kingdom. But I think that we'll move quickly into San Pedro and have the opportunity to fight 254. In addition, we have another pass that we can use, and this is where things get really interesting. So we can go into this zone over here, but not until pass 6 opens. Now, this is interesting because there is an ally of 846 who's just chilling right now. So these guys are chilling over here, and we're chilling. So one war camp from each team is just chilling right now. This war camp went to the left into Hellenberg, and they'll be able to join in to this zone Foxton before we can go in. So we'll only be able to go in from this level 6 pass. And in addition, 846 could come into this zone too before we get into this zone. So I would anticipate that 846 will set up with their allies in Foxton to battle and prevent us from entering into this zone. So our first fight will be in San Pedro against 254. We get into position in these passes, and then our next fight will be over here. 846 and their allies could try to invade us. So it's gonna be really interesting to see kind of how this KvK unfolds and what fights are ahead. And we still haven't seen the punching power of 2605 yet. So we're just kind of chilling right now, and we have the highest alliance power in this KvK, which is pretty wild, at 18.746 billion power. In terms of kill points, however, WIB is up top at 1.2 trillion kill points. We're there with 1 trillion. Mimi follows with 1 trillion as well. Duck at 713 billion. That's freaking huge, man. So I'm hyped for this KvK, and if you want to see what happens next, consider subscribing. I'll definitely be streaming future pass openings. Even if we're not fighting, somebody's going to be fighting. So I'll be showing that. And if you want to see the pass opening as it happened and all the drama as it unfolded, I'll have a card in the end screen in just a second for just the crazy series of mishaps that hit 254 and the subsequent fights. Alternatively, if you want an overview of the Diplo that went into this KvK and how the allies are set up the way that they are, card will be in the end screen for that one as well in just a second.